Hi, Trevor here, reflecting on life through music. Thank you for stopping by. Well, come in, you're very welcome again today. I trust you enjoyed my last video on rapper Coolio. And through his song Gangster's Paradise, we looked at what actually that might actually be. So I trust you found that one encouraging. Well, we're going on to a bunch of guys, Birmingham 1984. Started off with David Still on bass and Andy Cox on guitar. And these two guys have been in a band called The Beat, which had a bit of success. And I thought, well, The Beat are finished. What are we going to do now? So I thought, well, we've got a bit of an idea. Let's give it a bit of a go. We like a bit of pop, a bit of rock, and a bit of ska. But who are we going to get to sing with us? And after 500 auditions, they ended up on Roland Gift to be the lead singer. And the guys we're talking about are the Fine Young Cannibals. Now, interesting name, this one. Apparently it came from the movie All the Fine Young Cannibals, starring Robert Wagner and Natalie Wood in 1960. Massive stars in that era, that is for sure. There must have been something about that movie that actually resonated with these guys to give themselves a name. So in 1985, because these guys did get signed, they had the self-titled album, and probably the song which most of us met the Fine Young Cannibals through was Johnny Come Home. This is a song all about a kid that's strayed. He's run away, and they're really pleading for him to come home, and all the implications of what that's doing with the household, instead of including getting drunk every night. This is how bad things are. And this got me thinking of a well-known story. Once there was a father. He was getting on a bit of years, and he's also Jewish. And his youngest son comes to him and said, "Hey, Dad, I want my inheritance now." "What do you mean, son? You haven't even died yet." "I know, but I just need to live the life. I'm sick of being on this farm, and the girls are miles away, and I just want to leave." And so the father thought, right. So anyway, he did organise for the son to have half his inheritance. And sure enough, soon after, the guy left for the big city. And you can guess what happened. You got a young little kid in amongst wild women, wild parties, sex, drugs, rock and roll, the whole thing. He blew the lot. Now, not good. And there is an older brother in the story. We'll get to him in a minute. And so they said, well, what am I going to do now? So what he did, and what he ended up doing, he got a job in a kitchen hand, cleaning the most grossest pots that there could ever be imagined. And, in the original story, it's a pigsty, but let's go with pots. Hey, that sounds like a good idea. And he had never done that in his life. In fact, his hands were really hurting. And he thought, man, I really can't stand this job. But he stuck it out for a while, because what was happening was a bit of poverty happening in this city, and he needed the job to survive. Well, it wasn't long before this young lad came to his senses. Hey, my dad's got all these servants at home, and, they have a much better life than I do. So why don't I go back? But, I'm not going to be able to go back as a son. That's probably asking a bit much. What I'm actually going to do is I'm going to say, hey, Dad, no, hey, not even that. Hey, I'm going to go back, and, I'm really sorry for what's happened. I've sinned against you, really, and against heaven as well, maybe. I wonder what God's thinking about all this sort of stuff. And please take me back as one of your hired hands. And so at that point, he threw in the towel, literally. He threw his apron on the ground, and he said, well, I'm going to head for home. Now, imagine, first of all, the older brother. He's thinking, oh, that young brat, thank goodness he's gone. But the father was apparently going out at the end of the driveway every night looking for him. And so it wasn't long before the youngest son was caught sight by his dad. And Dad, instead of just waiting there with his hands on his hips and all the rest of it, he ran to him. Now, in this particular culture, a man running was just unheard of, particularly when you are the boss of their household. But he ran to his son. He wrapped his arms around him and said, hey, look, let's kill the fatted calf and put a robe on him, put a ring on his finger and all that sort of, and we're going to celebrate and have a party. Of course, the older brother, who, had been with his dad all the time and didn't seem to get any of this fatted calf stuff, he got a bit upset. But the father said, look, son, of course we've got to celebrate because your son who was lost has been returned. And of course, that is the prodigal son from the Gospels in the Bible. But it makes me wonder, kids that have run away, and in this case we've got Johnny in this song, why don't they go home? Well, they've left in the first place because they just don't like it. Perhaps it's a bit angry and it gets a bit upset. But if we've got loving parents, perhaps they're thinking, well, it's not going to be too late. If I go home now, I'm not going to be accepted. I'm not going to be respected. And besides, I'm going to lose my weight from running around in the first place. So, I don't want to do that. But in the case of this story, the young kid swallowed his pride and went back home. And sure enough, his dad actually forgave him for blowing all those millions and millions of dollars. So if you're a young kid on the run right now and you're watching this video, have a really, really hard think about, hey, why am I still out here? Can I go home or not? If it's dangerous, you might want to go somewhere else, but you don't want to stay out of home if you've got a loving family. And you never know, the family might actually wrap their arms around you and welcome you home. So I thought that's a bit of my take on Johnny Come Home from the Fine Young Cannibals. We got an official version of that one, and these little clips are all in the description below. And we've also got a live version of Johnny Come Home, followed up by Suspicious Minds, which of course, Elvis Presley classic, and another massive song for the Fine Young Cannibals. I can see why Roland was given the gig as lead singer for this particular band, because you know what, he's absolutely perfect for this group. He's got perfect pitch, this guy, got a perfect voice. It's just that way about him, and enables him to actually just carry the story off so well. So, because when this song came out, it was absolutely huge. And in 1989, the follow-up album, The Raw and the Cooked, came out, and a classic album, track off that album, She Drives Me Crazy, which was a pretty upbeat song for these guys, and a little bit of distorted guitar in it, but it just shows that Roland can do more than just the soft stuff. He can also really get down and rock this guy as well. In fact, these guys do ska, so that's pretty well full on right there. So we've got She Drives Me Crazy, a live version of that one. And then we got Good Thing, What Have You Done? Don't get fooled by how happy this song is. It's a breakup song, What Have You Done to Me? And a pretty amazing song by Fine Young Cannibals. These guys have actually won 2 Brit Awards, 1 Novello Award for She Drives Me Crazy, and 3 ASCAP Pop Awards. During their career, Fine Young Cannibals had 2 studio albums, 4 compilation albums, and 13 singles. So in the scheme of things, pretty successful. They certainly hit the ground running and were able to bring the world, as it was at this point, along for the ride, because these guys were quite unique. Really, it was Roland's vocals that gave these guys the voice that they had. So the links to those 5 songs are in the description below. And I've also included my last video from Coolio, so if you want to recap on him, feel free. Well, I do trust that, if there's anyone out there from broken families, they've just run away, or the parents are wondering, may this video inspire you to perhaps think about going back, hey? Go back, see what happens. Hopefully, and if your parents out there are missing a child, be nice when they do that, hey, because you want them back, don't you? So I trust this video will be an inspiration for you today. Well, that's it for today. If you've come back for another one, this is your first time, the Life Reflection Through Music. Thank you to everyone for being here and coming back and all the rest of it. Next time, we're going to go on to Asiatic Gang of Youths. So until then, I'll catch you around. Bye for now.